It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. And our guest is, well, just great to have you in studio. I always love it when you come in. I think Brad has always done the interviews when you come in, JD, but I'm so glad to be sitting here with you today. JD Maddy, president of the Astronomers of the Verde Valley in studio. We're going to get ourselves a little space update on what's going on in our solar system.
Yes, I wanted to bring everybody kind of up to speed on what's been happening, not only on Earth, but our own sun and such.
Yeah, it's great to have you in here. And you brought a lot of great photos, so we probably should tell the folks right now that those listening on the radio will do our best to kind of describe what's going on in the photos, but you're going to definitely want to go to our website at myradioplace.com later today and then go to the Verde Valley TV site and pull this show up so you can take a look at some of these photos and make sure they do that because they're going to be very interesting. Yes. Where are we going to start off with today, JD?
Well, let's start off with our own sun, the nearest star to us.
Something we've seen a lot of over the last few weeks.
We've just recently crossed our, we're in sun cycle, what's called sun cycle 24 right now, and it reached its peak about, 2 or 3 months ago. Well, during that peak, it was actually very little activity, almost just a bland, plain yellow ball in the sky. But in the last month, we've had a lot of sunspot activity, a lot of coronal mass ejection activity, just a lot of things happening on the sun right now, even though we're past the center of the solar cycle.
Now, what is some of that? Coronal, you said coronal?
Coronal mass ejection, yes. The sun basically kind of burps. Okay. And blows off a large amount of hydrogen gas as well as throws off gamma radiation and some other particles. You know, it's basically a particle explosion.
Okay. All right.
So the picture that they have up now is an ultraviolet view, and you'll notice there's two very large sunspots there, and I've been watching them cross the face of the sun over the past week. We can look at the sun, and by the way, if anyone wants to look at the sun, be sure to use proper eye protection, either eclipse glasses or a number 14 welding helmet or a properly filtered solar telescope. Okay. But if we put just a normal filter on a regular telescope, we can see sunspots. That's just those large black regions on the surface of the sun.
Now, is that the result of the burp?
Not necessarily.
No.
That's when the magnetic flux goes through its cycle. It comes up to the surface and cools a region on the surfaces of the sun, and it appears darker to us. Okay. But over the last few years, even amateurs like myself have been able to look at the sun in different wavelengths of light. The picture they have up there now is one with a hydrogen alpha telescope that only sees the red spectrum. And this allows you to see the solar flares and prominences coming off the edge of the sun. The ultraviolet view looks a little beyond that, a little below the hydrogen alpha layer to see more of the surface of the sun. So when you see a sunspot with a normal solar filter, it's just a small black spot. When you look at it hydrogen alpha view, you'll barely see it. It's just a very, very small spot. But with the ultraviolet view, you can see more of that region as a large dark area.
Does that mean anything to us down here?
It can, yes it can. If one of those sunspots happens to create a coronal mass ejection, it sends those highly energized gamma ray particles and particles racing towards the Earth. They move fairly slowly, not at the speed of light, but roughly about 1 million miles an hour. So when these are detected coming towards us, we'll have several days actually to prepare for it. And we don't have to worry about it here on Earth because we have our magnetic flux that covers the Earth that pretty much protects us from the gamma rays. But satellites that are outside that protective layer have to shut down or move in orbit and protect themselves as well.
So is it something they can get out of the way of up there? I mean,
yes.
Okay, so they're very directional, and if the direction's this wide, if we move out of that area, like the space station, move it out of that area, then it's no longer a danger?
Yes, or they can park it in a certain spot around the Earth so the Earth shields it basically from that. And these coronal mass ejections also help cause our aurora borealis and australis borealis that occur, the northern lights and southern lights. Because right at the very poles, there's almost like a hole of the magnetic flux as it comes out around the Earth. So the particles are able to go into that and ionize or energize the particles in the atmosphere.
And that's what creates the northern lights and southern lights?
Correct.
As they're being pulled down into that hole?
Correct.
Oh, that makes so much sense to me now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the sun's always fun to look at, but you always have to use proper protection to look at the sun.
Right.
So some other things that have been going on are comets. Let's talk about Comet Ison a little bit.
Okay.
Comet Ison was discovered in 2012, I believe it was, and the whole scientific community has been so excited over the past year about Comet Ison.
Why?
Well, they thought it was going to be the comet of the century. Because of its size and its movement, and Hubble started watching it early on. It was discovered actually by a couple of Russian amateur astronomers going over data from the International Scientific Optical Network, the telescopes that they operate there in Russia. And once it was discovered, the Hubble turned around and started watching it as well, and just the characteristics of it, because it was so far out at that time, it was several 100 million miles away at that time, it had the characteristics of being a comet of the century.
What does that mean, a comet of the century?
Well, that's a comet that can be easily seen in the evening sky.
I can go outside and just look up and see it.
Exactly,
Okay.
and in some cases, even in the daytime. Some comets over the last few years have been visible in the daytime.
Sure.
So that was their hope. Yes,
Hale-Bopp.
That was one.
Okay. Okay.
And also Cayutek, I think.
Okay.
Was another one. So they were getting very excited about it. All the astronomy magazines were articles every month for the last year, about Comet Ison, how great it was going to be and such. But a lot of astronomers also said, well, it's going to get really, really close to the sun. So they thought it was going to get sucked up into the sun's gravity.
Oh, wow.
Or be torn apart. And that's exactly what happened.
Really?
Yes.
Really? So it got too close to the sun?
Once it got close to the sun, it pretty much, the gravitational pull broke it up, very similar to Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, as it went close to Jupiter, and then Jupiter's gravitational pulled it in, and it basically broke up into a dozen pieces before it actually impacted Jupiter. Same thing happened with this. It broke it up. It did have enough velocity that a few of the parts made it around the sun, but as they watched it, those started to break up as well.
So were we able to actually watch it break up and then be absorbed into the sun?
Yes, there's the Svili here. What was it? The Solar Observatory, they call it SOHO, had their eyes on it and was watching it pretty closely, and they were actually able to pretty much see it break up as it went around the sun.
That's amazing.
So it's pretty interesting. What disappointed me, though, at the same time that Comet Ison was still heading towards the sun and looking pretty good in the sky, there was another comet called Comet Lovejoy, discovered by an amateur in Australia, Terry Lovejoy, just in September of this year. So it was a wonderful comet to see. You could see it naked eye in the early morning sky. It was high in the sky. It was just a wonderful comet to view. Although I was watching Comet Ison as well, I was more entertained by Comet Lovejoy. And for whatever reason, the press gave it no airtime at all, nothing at all. And in fact, I'm still watching Comet Lovejoy. I took some pictures of it. The picture I think we were showing there I took a couple of weeks ago.
Awesome.
So as you can see, it's a very nice comet.
What gives it that glow like that?
Well, as comets are basically dirty snowballs. And as they approach the sun warms them up. And the water ice that's on them, and there can be other types of chemicals as liquids or actually as solids like methane and such. As these chemicals boil off, they don't turn to a liquid. It's called sublimation. They turn actually from a solid to a gas. The gas comes off, and depending on the chemicals, like with water, it would be hydrogen and oxygen, and there's some other chemicals that come off with it as well. The sunlight illuminates them in the blues and the green colors. And so that's what gives comets their neat colors.
We need to take a break. Let's take our first break already, okay? J.D. Maddy, president of the Astronomers of the Verde Valley, in studio today. I'm Paul David. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be right back with more County-Wide.
When you're out there, there's no telling what you'll find.
I see it! I see it! Oh, look at you.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Ready or not, here I come.
Take time to be a dad today.
Daddy, I'm gonna find you.
Welcome back to Countywide. I'm Paul David. JD and Maddy in studio today. Astronomers of the Verde Valley. He is the president of that group. They've got some events coming up, so mark your calendars. April 5th, there's one out at Tonto Natural Bridge State Park, and I imagine these are all in the evening.
Tonto Bridge will actually be a daytime event as well.
A daytime event?
We'll do solar viewing during the day.
Okay,
yes.
solar viewing. And then April 26th, a little something out at Tuzagoot National Monument. And May 5th at Red Rock Ranger Station. All this information is probably on the website as well. Okay, what is your website?
Our website's astroverde.org.
Astroverde.org. All right, we're going to come back, and do we want to hit Comet Linear?
Yes, we can talk just a minute, finish up with that.
Okay.
Comet Linear is another comet that was discovered roughly about the same time as Comet Ison, and right now it's visible in the morning sky as well. I've been watching it for the last 2 weeks.
Now, where would I look in the morning sky? What time?
Probably between 5 and 6 a.m.
Okay.
And Comet Lovejoy and Comet Linear are both in the constellation of Ophiuchus.
Oh, really?
Ophiuchus is the 13th zodiacal constellation. Between, I think it's November 29th and December 15th or 16th, the sun travels through the constellation of Ophiuchus. So that's what's known as the 13th zodiacal constellation.
So which way am I looking when I'm looking outside?
That would be pretty much due east.
Due east, okay.
East,
all right, so there you go. Between 5 and 6 a.m. is the best time to go look for that. Okay.
Both are visible in binoculars.
Okay.
It works best if you have a tripod for your binoculars to hold them steady.
Gotcha.
Or lean up against a building to hold them steady so you can see.
Steady's better. Now we're going to skip past NOVA update just a little while, but we want to go to the NEO update, Near Earth Object.
Yes.
All right, tell me about that.
Many of you of our listeners and viewers know that the Discovery Channel telescope was constructed and is up and running now in Happy Jack, and that telescope is going to be used to help discover near-Earth objects. Now, near-Earth object could be a comet, but it's more than likely going to be an asteroid or a meteoroid.
Real quick, what's considered close to Earth? I was curious as to what close to Earth is.
Close to Earth can be anything in the solar system, basically.
Okay, all right.
The main idea of the NEO projects, or the Near-Earth Objects projects, are to calculate the orbits of these near-Earth objects. Now, they could be 1 billion miles away, but it might have an orbital path that crosses Earth's path. Okay. And that's the big concern.
Right.
They want to be able to follow these objects and try to determine their orbital path. Okay. Now, about a year ago, last February, there was an asteroid called DA14 passed by the Earth. All the amateurs were out looking at it. It actually passed us during the daytime, but in that evening we could actually still see it going away. And at the same time, the Chelyabinsk meteor struck the Earth, coming from the other direction. At first, they thought they might be related, twins, in other words, but it was didn't take them long to figure out that, well, the trajectory was all wrong, and they were actually different objects. But it took us, the Chelyabinsk meteor took us totally by surprise. We had no clue it was there. No one saw it coming.
Really?
That's correct.
Why is that?
It was fairly small. It was about the size of a bus. So it was fairly small.
You say that, it sounds so big to me, but size of a bus, so that makes it small.
Yes, that makes it fairly small, according to the asteroids they've determined.
Sure,
so far.
I'm sure, okay.
And that was fairly small, but the damage that occurred from it was great, and it never hit the ground. It actually, a very small piece of it that was left over landed in a lake, which I think I had some pictures of that. But it was fairly small, but all the damage was done just from the sonic blast of it coming through the atmosphere.
Really?
You know, broke out thousands and thousands of windows and injured a lot of people from the flying glass.
I'll be darned.
So we don't actually have to be struck by a near-Earth object or an asteroid to cause damage. It could basically just the sonic boom could pretty much wipe out a small city.
I'll be darned. I didn't know that.
When they finally, of course, it hit a frozen lake in February in Russia. It gets a little cold. So it was just in August, I believe, they were able to dredge through and find the thing, and they were able to drag it out. Early on, they thought, well, it was fairly small, football to basketball size piece left, but they ended up with a very, very heavy piece. There's a picture of it there.
Yeah, kind of a large rock. It looks like about knee high.
Yeah, it weighs approximately 2 tons. So
really, that little rock weighs 2 tons?
Yes, it's actually an iron mixed with the rock as well.
Wow.
So it's pretty heavy. And there again, that was a bus-size meteor. Wow. Our University of Arizona is working on a project now. It's called OSIRIS-REx.
This is the one I heard about just a couple weeks ago in the news, right?
It's going to be launched in 2016. But what they're going to do is actually send a probe to an asteroid, land this probe on the asteroid, and take samples of it, and then bring it back to Earth.
Now, how are we going to do that? Because it's moving up there. I mean, they don't just have a solid trajectory where they're just stationary. They're constantly spinning.
They have orbits. They have orbits. And the reason they wanted to examine this one was in about 200 years, it has a 1 in 800 chance of striking the Earth.
So that's a pretty good chance.
That's a pretty good chance, yes.
That is a pretty good chance.
Yes, so even though, and whereas the asteroid DA-14, we saw it coming, watched it go by. But the Chelyabinsk meteor, we had no clue. That's the ones that we are not familiar with, that we don't know are out there, could be the ones that cause some damage to us.
And that's what Discovery will be looking for?
Yes.
Those in particular?
Yes, exactly. Okay. So this is actually about $1 billion project totally to land this spacecraft on this asteroid. And it's not going to reach there, I think, until, let's see, it's scheduled for launch in 2016, and it's going to arrive near the asteroid in 2018. Oh, wow. So it's going to take quite a while to get there.
So it's a ways out there still.
Yes, yes. And because this is a fairly large asteroid, I think it's about 1,800 foot wide or something like that. But because asteroids really don't have gravity, they can't land on it. So they're going to basically make a series of passes, and it's going to basically land, touch it, scoop up some material, and then just the action of scooping up the material will be enough force to cause it to move back away, and then they can...
So they're going to skip it across it?
Exactly.
Kind of like a rock on a pond. They're going to take this device and skip it across there, and then each time it'll stick in a blade that'll scrape off
except in very slow motion.
Right. Let's take another break. We have to take another break. J.D. Maddy in studio today with he's the president of the Astronomers of the Verde Valley. I'm Paul David, County-wide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Calling the GED Pep Talk Center. Jerry Stiller speaking. Your level 7 in-your-face pep talk.
I can keep pushing. Believe me, I'm good at it. But at some point, you're going to need to start pushing yourself.
See, once you've got your GED diploma, you'll feel so good about yourself.
You tell them. You can't change the past, but you can definitely change the future.
That makes me so happy, I'm ready to bust out a dance.
Mr. Trejo, can I transfer this guy to you? My gentle technique isn't really working. You need something a little more...
persuasive?
Yes.
You listen, and you listen good.
Hey, where's my sandwich? Terry? Terry!
Take it from me, the King DMC. It's a real cool thing to get your GED.
Get that diploma!
Now hold on and we'll find you free GED classes. Capiche?
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
I'm one unlucky guy. The chance of being involved in a robbery is 1 in 757. The chances of being struck by lightning 1 in 750,000.
Please fasten your seatbelts for unexpected turbulence.
The chances of being a victim in an airline crash 1 in 29 million. Hey, could I get some peanuts? The chances of being involved in a car crash are far greater than lightning strikes and plane crashes. And if you are texting while driving, your risk of crash increases 23 times. Now, I may be an unlucky guy, but I don't have to be part of that statistic, and neither do you. Drive responsibly.
Welcome back to Countywide. We have just a few minutes left in the program. Real quick, April 5th, Tonto Natural Bridge State Park. April 26th, Tuzagoot National Monument. May 5th, Red Rock Ranger Station. All kinds of different things coming up. And your website again was?
Astroverde.org.
Astroverde.org. So do look that up, and you can take care of some of these events and ask all kinds of questions with JD and everybody else that's out there with the astronomers of the Verde Valley Club. Okay, now... We go up there, we skim this asteroid, and we decide, okay, yeah, the 1 in 800 chance is too much of a chance. How do we go about stopping something like that from happening?
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with the movie Armageddon, where they go up and blow the thing up.
Bruce Willis.
That's really not feasible, because instead of one problem, you're going to have 1,000 problems then.
So if we did what they did, it would just be all these multiple chunks now coming at us instead of just, okay.
So they actually have to move it. And there's theories about taking a spacecraft up and accelerating and trying to push it. It only has to be pushed just a little bit. But another popular theory is to paint it.
Paint it?
Paint it, yes.
Okay.
They can either, some asteroids are dark in color. In fact, most are fairly dark. But if they were to paint it white, the solar radiation would reflect and help push it away, like a radiometer. When I was a kid, I had a little radiometer that had a little twirling vein in there, silver on one side, black on the other side. Well, it's basically the theory is that if they could paint it, put a white powder on it, or whatever the case may be, the solar energy would push it just enough to move it away. But in this case, we have 200 years to worry about it. In many cases, we're not going to have that much time, so we may have to figure out some other method to move it.
That is amazing. That is amazing. J.D. Maddy, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, certainly. It's always fun to be here.
We definitely have to have you come in a few times a year to do this. I think it would be really great.
Hopefully the viewers and listeners like it as well.
They have to. The pictures were phenomenal. Again, go to our website, myradioplace.com, later today and look that up on Verde Valley TV, that little selection right there, and you can see all those photos we were looking at today. I'm Paul David, J.D. Maddy. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Verde Valley Astronomers. Stick around. Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.
So who's going to do what?